Welcome everyone to another episode of Let's Talk Special Economic Zones, SEZ. It's one of my favorite topics. In this episode, we are going to cover a bit of a sticky topic, and that has to do with the restriction. Typically, you'll find some level of restriction on the sale of SEZ lands or the transfer of SEZ assets from one company to another. Generally speaking, the policy rationale behind that is because a company would have received certain fiscal and in certain jurisdictions, financial or both incentives. In Jamaica's instance, it's just fiscal incentives. For example, they would have received duty-free importation of particular equipment, for example, or they would have gotten duty-free off construction material. In other jurisdictions, they may even get tax holidays or tax rebates or tax credits on certain types of taxes, land taxes, for example, or corporate income tax. Having received that, which would have attracted them, facilitated their investment, it would be very difficult to then turn around and sell that land without some level of approval from the zone authority. In Jamaica's case, the Jamaica Special Economic Zone Authority. So that would be considered a form of tax leakage. And from our policy, we and in our act, section 7 sub 2 to sub 4 of the legislation directs us to, that is the authority, because I'm a member of the authority, to prevent tax leakage. So we are to take measures to prevent tax leakage, and that would constitute some level of tax leakage by allowing or facilitating one business to sell, that is SEZ or was SEZ, to sell their assets to another SEZ without the payment of taxes or duties or repayment. Because when you think about it, it's more that the incentives are given and the, for example, the duties would be in essence suspended until a decision is taken. And it would be unfair to the country who incentivized the investment to then have that asset be sold at a discount because they would not have paid duties on that particular asset. Another policy rationale for it is that when a new company enters a system, we would need to do, or in any zone regime, there has to be a degree of due diligence done on the person. And this has become even stricter over the years because of the global economic framework or global economic governance that is out there. You have, if you're under an IMF program, there will be strictures there. For example, you have the OECD and their BEPS initiative, which is base erosion and tax shifting initiative, and also you have the OECD as well with their anti-money laundering framework. In addition, you also have the WTO, which governs the trade side of things, and even the WCO, I should have said the World Trade Organization for WTO. And then the WCO, which is the World Customs Organization. You have these different organizations that make up or govern the governance, economic governance around the world. And there are rules that are set out that, in a sense, nations must obey or find themselves blacklisted, either cannot trade or have difficulty circulating money. So it becomes very important that we know who are in the zones directly and indirectly, because it has gone as far as having us to know who the beneficial owners are. So, for example, in 2017, Jamaica amended its legislation. Its companies Companies Act, registration of companies, incorporation of companies, to cover the knowing who beneficial owners are. That's part of that anti-money laundering framework. So it's part of Jamaica's national framework, but it is part of, or emanates from the OECD's efforts to have certain level of standardization when it comes to anti-money laundering. In addition, we know that zones are a target for money launderers and for the financing of terrorism and such other financial crimes. So zone authorities around the world have to be vigilant and make sure that they tighten up on these matters. So those are two of, not the only, two of the major reasons why there would be a restriction on the selling of special economic zone assets and or lands without prior notification, and in many cases, in the case of Jamaica at least, authorization from the zone authority. I hope you like this episode. If you found it at least marginally educational or greatly educational, could you could you share, and just generally distribute and comment, please? Thank you.